Beit Shammai says one may not sell him a plowing cow in the seventh year, but Basil permits it because he can slaughter it. One may sell him produce even at sowing time, but he may lend him his saw measured through he knows that he has a threshing floor. And he may change money for him, though he knows that he has workers, but if expressly all are forbidden. A woman may lend her neighbors, who is suspect in regard to the seventh year, a sifter, a sieve, a handmill, or an oven, but she may not sift or grind with her. The wife of a chaver may lend to the wife of an amaret a sifter or a sieve, but she may sift, grind, and refine with her. But once she has poured water, she may not touch with her, for one may not aid transgressors. And all of these things were said solely for the sake of peace. And one may encourage non-Jews in the seventh year, but not Jews. And one may greet them for the sake of peace. There are three territories in regard to the seventh year, all that which the ascendants from Babylon occupied of Eretz Israel as far as Kiziv, may not be eaten or cultivated, and all that the ascendants from Egypt occupied from Kiziv as far as the river and until Amana, and may be eaten but not cultivated from the river and Amana, where inward it may be eaten and cultivated.
Okay. Now comes the status of Syria. Syria is land that was conquered by David Melech, and Chazal added on the chumras, is a few chumras of Shemitah, though not all, as we will see. So we are allowed to do certain work in Syria. Osin betalush b'Syria. You're allowed to do agricultural work with already harvested things. Once it's no longer attached to the ground, no restrictions on dealing with the produce. Of a loba mechubar, but the chumrah is that we have to treat it as Shemitah produce while it's attached to the ground. So no harvesting and pruning and stuff like that. Dashim, and here's the explanation, and the Mishnah goes on to explain what you are allowed to do. Dashim v'zorin v'dorchin amrin. You're allowed to thresh it and winnow it, and you're allowed to dorchin is to walk over it, is to basically
Tread, tread, they tread and bind. Right, tread and bind.
and bind, right. Aval lo kotrin, you're not allowed to harvest on industrial level. You got to treat it as if it's the hefka produce in the field. You can walk in and pick by hand. But lo botrin, lo muskim, and you're not allowed to do the and botrin and muskim are basically the harvesting actions when it comes to grapes and olives respectively. Klalama Rabbi Akiva. So says Rabbi Akiva, here's your rule of thumb. Kol she kayotze bo mutar be'eretz Yisrael. Anything that is permitted mina Torah. This is what's in brackets in the Mishnah over here. Whatever's mutar mina Torah in Eretz Yisrael, but is only asur midrabanan in Eretz Yisrael, osin also b'Surya. So
Sure.
you're allowed to do it in prayer. Okay. Gimel, B'tsalim sheyardu alehem geshamim. So you've got onions that grew in the sixth year. But as we know, we store onions underground, and they might sprout. Okay, so if you stored if the rain fell on them and that stimulated them to grow, okay, if the leaves that sprouted out of the onions are, well, it says black, but I don't think you ever really have black leaves from an onion. But it's a dark green. It's a
Yeah.
strong dark green basically. Sorry, then those growths are considered the offshoots or the shoots that have come because of Shevi'is, and therefore as Svichin, it's also as something that grew during Shevi'is. Horiku, however, if they were green, a light green or yellowish green, then that's just something that sort of came from the onion by itself. It's not considered a seventh year growth. Hore'elu mutarin, and that's just part of the onion and finished. Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus Omer im yocholim litalesh be'alin shelahen asurin. So he says that your rule for these onions is whether you can actually pick up the onion with these leaves. If they're strong enough that you could pull them out the ground from the leaves, then that's considered new growth. And if not, then it's just natural, just sort of a part of the onion itself. Okay. So that last phrase over there, it seems like it could be applied to the whole Mishnah, that when it comes to the converse case, like let's say you had some onions that grew during Shemitah and
Right.
left in the ground, nobody touched them. So the onions we know are Shemitah, are Shemitah onions. Um, and then in the eighth year, this growth came out. Now you're going to play exactly the same criterion, but now with the heter becomes Isser and the Isser becomes heter because now the new growth is eighth year growth, and that's fine. But it's the old, if it's the old stuff, if it's the light one, then that's still seventh year growth, and that's still considered Shemitah produce. Just by the way, all this that we're talking over here only apply to the leaves. The onions themselves remain the same status, even if they've pushed off leaves that were from the following year. Daled, me'emasai mutar adam likach yorak b'motzei Shvi'is. Okay, so it goes into the marketplace after Rosh Hashanah, and a whole bunch of tomatoes for sale. And you say, oh, hold on a second, are these legit? Do these grow during Shemitah? So says the Mishnah, Mishe Yase Kiyotzebo. This is when the new produce basically becomes available.
Mhm.
And you'll see that like many like the Machonat Torah Va'aretz and other similar organizations will publish a calendar of what dates you can assume that the new produce is from the eighth year.
Okay.
Okay. Asa Habakir. If Asa Habakir to Hutar. So once the early crops have hit the market, Hutar Ha'afil. So everything comes, even if you think this looks like a late crop, we don't have to worry about it. Let me just make sure that I've understood that correctly. Yeah, if it's in a place, if the produce in ripens sooner in the north, let's say,
Mhm.
and you know that they've hit the markets in the north, and now you come to the south, and that's not normally ripe by now. But nonetheless, once the early produce has been is legitimate, it could have come from anywhere in the country, and therefore you're allowed to buy it in the marketplace. Rabbi Hatir likach yarak b'motzei shvius miyad, and Rabbi Yehuda Anasi said it's not a problem. Already on some Gedalia, you can come and buy whatever produce you want in the marketplace. What's his reason for this? Aleph, because they didn't used to bring because they used to bring a lot of produce from Chutz La'aretz, which then as now they would have to import vegetables from Chutz La'aretz, and so okay, so you see tomatoes in the marketplace. It's the same tomatoes that you saw yesterday, which were from Chutz La'aretz, are going to be the ones that are here now. And secondly, he says because the vegetables can grow and ripen within 2 or 3 days. So he's really not fussed about this whole situation. Um, I think that I think the halacha does not follow Rebbe in this case, but it's not clear over here. I think just Lamasid, if we see how we behave nowadays, is that we look at these calendars and say, okay, when do we know that this produce doesn't need a specific
Right.
label saying that yeah, this comes from Chutz La'aretz. Okay,
Okay.
let's go back to Gimel Zion.
We used to have that. We used to go to Costco in the big warehouse kind of thing, and you go for some vegetables or something like all packaged, and you had to look and see if it came from Israel or not. We
Hmm.
took the ones from Mexico.
There was that funny skit that Ashley Blaker did. You know Ashley Blaker, the British comedian?
Oh,
From comedian and he said there was one time when he was working at the BBC. Just he
yeah.
had a gig there, and somebody offered he was going down to the local supermarket and said, "Does anyone want anything?" And he said, "Yeah, like he'd love some cucumbers, please." Little cucumbers, and then he thought, hold on a second, it's Shemitah in Israel right now, and he knows that there are places that export cucumbers of Shemitah and so he shouts out across the room, just make sure that the cucumbers aren't from Israel. Oh, was he popular in the BBC after that?
I can see that. Oh, well. All right, Gimel Zion, yes? Uh,
Yeah.
Stone which the plow turned up or which were covered and are now laid bare. If there are two each of each a load of two men, they may be removed. If one clears stones from his field, he may take the top ones, but he must leave those which touch the ground. Likewise, a heap of pebbles and pile of stones, he may take the top ones, but must leave those which touch the ground. And if there's any rocky ground or straw underneath them, they may
Carry on.
oh, or like under the straw underneath them, they must be removed. Okay. One may not build steps by the ravines in the sixth year after the rains have ceased, because this would be preparing them for the seventh year. But they may build them in the seventh year after the rains have ceased, because this would be preparing them for the eighth year. He may not block them with earth, and he may make an embankment, and any stone that he can take when stretching out his hand may be removed. Shoulder stones may be taken from anywhere, and a contractor may bring them from anywhere. Which are shoulder stones? Any that cannot be taken with one hand. So says Rav Meir. Rabbi Yossi says, as their name implies, those that are carried two or three on the shoulder. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Liam.
Okay. Base Gimel. If his field was sown with wheat and he decided to sow with barley, he must wait until it becomes wormy. And if he turns it over and afterwards he may sow. If it had already sprouted, he must not say, I will sow and then I will turn over, but he must turn over and then sow. How much must he plow? As a furrow after the rain, Abba Shaul says, so that he should not leave a quarter for a beit tzah. If it was sown and he decided to plant it, he may not say, I will plant and then I will turn over, but he must turn over and then plant. And if he is planted and he decided to sow it, he may not say, I will sow and then I will uproot, but he must uproot and then sow. If he so wishes, he may cut down to less than one tefachim, sow and then uproot. If his field was sown with caraway or arum, he must not sow on top of them, for they only produce after 3 years. If some after growth of isatis sprang up among grain, and likewise if several species sprang up in the area of a threshing floor, or among fenugreek diverse plants have grown up, if he is not required to weed them out, and if he weeded or cut them, he is told uproot all except for one species. If one wishes to lay out his field in beds, each serving a different species, Reb Shammai says,
Hold on. That's already Vav, right? Okay,
yeah,
we've done three. Yeah, we've done three.
Oh,
Okay, Zavim.
okay. One who eats of the carcass of a kosher bird and the flesh that is in his throat contaminates two and invalidates one. If he inserted his head into the airspace of an oven, the oven is tahor. If he spit it out or swallowed it, he contaminates one and invalidates the other. But while it is in his mouth, before he swallows, it is tahor. He is tahor. One who touches a sheretz, a semen, or one who touches that which contracts a tumor from a corpse, or one who touches a tzara during the days of his counting or purification water of an amount insufficient for sprinkling, or an amount animal carcass or the uncontaminated saddle of a zav contaminates one and invalidates one. This is the rule. Anything that touches one of the avasatuma listed in the Torah contaminates one and invalidates one, except for a person. Once it separates, it also contaminates one and invalidates one. A man who has discharged semen is like one who touches sheretz, and a man who is contaminated with a nida is like one who has touched a corpse. However, a man who is contaminated with a nida has a stringency over one who has touched a corpse, for he contaminates a couch and a seat with a light form of tumor, enabling them to contaminate food and vegetables. Okay.
I'm going to finish this tomorrow and start Tvul Yom.
Masai Til Yom?
Tvul Yom tomorrow, yeah.
All right.
Caleb.
Okay. Base. A drawing string whose drawstrings were removed is tummy. If it was flattened out, it is tahor. If one attached to the pouch on its underside, it's tummy. Regarding a purse within a purse, which one of those which become into contact with tummy liquid, the other does not become tummy. The wrap of a diamond is tummy. And as for the wrap of coins, Rabbi Eliezer rules a tummy, but the sages rule a tahor. Amid a branch gatherers is tahor. A zone and a kippah ner are tameh. Work sleeves are tameh, but headbands are tahor. All gloves are tahor except for those of a branch gatherers, because it is used to contain the sumac berry. However, if it is tore, it cannot hold most of the sumac berry. It is tahor. A sandal, one of whose side flaps were off and when repaired it, is tamei midras. If the second side flap tears off and when repaired it, the sandal is tahor from midras truma, but it is tamei due to contact with midras. If one did not manage to repair the first side flap before the second one tore off, the sandal is tahor. And if his heel piece tore off or the toe piece was removed, it is split in two and it is tahor. A soliyam that tore in any way is tahor, and regarding a shoe that tore, if it cannot contain most of the foot, it's tahor. Regarding a shoe that is on the last, Reb Eliezer rules the tahor, the sages rule the tameh. All tied water skins are tahor except the one of the Arabs. Reb Meir says those tied with the temporary binding are tahor, and those tied with the permanent binding are tameh. And Reb Yossi says all tied water skins are tahor. Okay.
Right.
We are in Shavuos. Shevi'is, Yud Aleph. The vain oath applies to both men and women, non-relatives and relatives, qualified persons and disqualified persons in court and out of court, but only by his own mouth. One is liable for its willful transgression to a penalty of lashes, but one for its inadvertent transgression, one is exempt. For both this and that, one who is endured by others is liable. How so? If one said, I have not eaten today, or I have not put on tefillin today, and the other said, I adore you, and he replied, Amen, he is liable. The oath of testimony applies to men but not to women, to non-relatives but not to relatives, and those qualified but not to those who disqualified. And it applies only to those fit to testify both in court and out of court. By his own mouth, as if he endured by others, they are not liable unless they deny it in court. And these are the ones of Reb Meir. But the incumbents say whether he swears by his own mouth or whether he is endured by others, they are not liable unless they deny it in court. They are liable for the willful transgression of the oath as well as for its inadvertent transgression, coupled with the willful transgressions of the testimony, but they are not liable for its inadvertent transgression. How now? What are they liable for the willful transgression of the oath?
We finished after Aleph.
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
basic. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so
Okay.
basic.
So tomorrow, next time we start base. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And Rosh Hashanah.
Okay. Gimel Zion. If a person blows a shofar in a pit or into a cistern or into a task, if one heard the sound of the shofar, he has fulfilled his obligation. But if he has heard the sound of an echo, he has not fulfilled his obligation. Similarly, if one was passing by a synagogue or his house was close to a synagogue and he heard the sound of the shofar or the sound of the reading of the Megillah, if he concentrated, he has fulfilled his obligation. But now, if not, he has not fulfilled his obligation. Even though both he and someone else listened, this one concentrated, the other one did not concentrate. And it came to pass when Moshe raised his hand that Israel prevailed. Was it Moses' hands that won the battle or lost the battle? Rather, the Torah teaches you, as long as Israel looks heavenward and subjected their heart to the Father in heaven, they would prevail, but when they did not, they would fall. In a similar manner, you learn, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and it will come to pass that whoever is bitten will look at it and live. What was the serpent that killed or the serpent that gave life? Rather, when Israel looked heavenward and subjected their heart to the Father in heaven, they were healed, but when they did not, they perished. And a deaf person, an imbecile, and a minor cannot discharge the obligation of the many. This is the general rule. Whoever is not obligated himself in a manner cannot discharge the obligation of the many. And when the Rosh Hashanah festival fell on Shabbos, they would blow the shofar in the temple, but not in the province. And after the temple was destroyed, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted that they blow the shofar in every place where there is a Beis Din. Reb Elazar said Rabbanan Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted celebration for Yava only, and they said to him Yavda and any other place where there is a bet din.
Goyach.
I'm going to you.
Yeah.
Hey, have a great
Hey,
Shabbos. Enjoy.
see you Sunday.
Sunday. Thank you.